Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be going over the Washington Commanders playoff outlook, what they have to do to get into the playoffs, and we'll go through all the different scenarios and why it really comes down to one game. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content super close to 10th. So I'm going to try to make, this video every week or two, especially when, significant changes happen to either the Commanders or other teams' records. So right now the Washington Commanders are currently sitting at 7-5-1, and they have the 8th seed in the NFC. The Philadelphia Eagles are ahead of them, the Vikings are ahead of them, the 49ers are ahead of them, and the Buccaneers are now 6-6 and ahead of them because of they're first in the division, and the Cowboys, Giants, and Seattle Seahawks are all ahead of the Commanders. The Commanders are very slightly behind the Seahawks and one game behind the New York Giants. So things can definitely change next game against the New York Giants. I mean, that's the biggest game of the year by far. This past game was the biggest game of the year, and up until then, but now this game right now, since both teams tied, this is 100% the biggest game of the year. This is a must-win game for the Washington Commanders. If they win this game, their playoff chances go up dramatically. So we're going to go into the playoff predictor, go through a bunch of different scenarios, and then also talk about if I think they're going to make the playoffs. And I still think they could make it. So right now, the Commanders sit at about a 70% chance of making the playoffs, and their competitors, the Giants, about a 50%, and the Seattle Seahawks about a 79% chance. So, pretty close. I mean, I think the Seahawks are probably going to make it. Their schedule is way too easy, but let's go ahead and kind of make some predictions for the Commanders. So let's say they beat the Giants, because they have to. They really have to. Yeah, realistically, if they want to make the playoffs comfortably, they're going to have to beat the Giants. If not, they're going to definitely have to win 2 out of their last 3 against the 49ers and against the Browns or Cowboys. So if the Commanders beat the Giants next week, they're at about an 88% chance of making the playoffs. And if that stands and they just don't win a single game after that, I just want to go through the odds with you on that one. So if they lose out, right? They lose to the Browns, lose to the 49ers, and lose to the Cowboys, which honestly all are realistic. I don't think that's going to happen, but these teams, the 49ers with Jimmy G, I would definitely have them favored over us. Without Jimmy G, I think it's going to be a close game. Browns, same thing. Deshaun Watson, definitely was rushing in his first game. We'll see how he looks in a few weeks when we play them, but that might be a little bit of an advantage for us. And the Cowboys, it really depends on if they rest starters or not. But you look at that, 8-1, which is basically a losing record, which sucks, still gives us a 50% chance of making the playoffs. I want to make the playoffs, and I'll still take it, but I want to make the playoffs with at least 9 wins. And then let's look at the most realistic scenario for the Giants, right? They have a tough schedule. That's why, even though we're one game behind them, we have a much higher chance of making the playoffs than them. So the Giants, I've got them losing to the Eagles this week, and then I've got them losing to the Minnesota Vikings as well. I think that's going to be a tough game. Winnable, yes, but I don't see them winning that game. And then you go to the last couple games of the season, I think they'll win one of the last 2. I think the Indianapolis Colts, that's not a 100% chance they win that game. The Colts have a good run game and can keep them in games. I still think they're going to win that game. And if they don't, maybe they'll beat the Eagles, who might be resting their starters last game of the season. So you look at that. If that happens, the Commanders would have a 73% chance of making the playoffs. It really comes down to the Commanders and the Giants, because we're competing against them, and if we beat them, then that really helps us, because we go, we're going to be ahead of them, and that gives them a loss, gives us a win. And so let's move back to other scenarios real quick. But again, the Giants game, I can't stress this enough. We have to win that game. We absolutely have to win that game if we want to make the playoffs. But I'll go through, if we lose that game, what happens. And if we get 9 wins, guys, and one of them is against the Giants, one of them is against the Giants, we're basically locked into the playoffs. But let's say we lose against the Giants. That puts us our playoff chances to about 30%, 31%, and the Giants all the way up to 86%. And then let's say we beat the 49ers, who will have their backup quarterback. That does bring us up to 58%, and you see the 49ers starting to go a little bit lower. And that's one scenario where, let's say we do lose the Giants, but the 49ers now, with their quarterback situation, who knows? Maybe they start losing some games. I mean, they play the Bucks. Let's say they lose that game, and then they lose the Seahawks, who are a very good team as well. We need to root for either the Seahawks to lose out, which again is not going to happen, or the 49ers losing out. It has to be one of the two. But you see that right there. If the 49ers lose a lot of their games, then we have a shot of making the playoffs as well. And the thing is, their schedule isn't too easy, and then if they win that game and then let's say they lose that game, they still have a 50% chance of making it, but we would have a 63% chance of making it. So that's kind of where it really gets crazy, but the Commanders really control their own destiny. I know they aren't in the playoff hunt right now, or they're not in the 7th seed, but if they win the Giants game and win one more game, you look at the playoff chances, I'll go and show you guys. It's basically a lock. 9 wins gets us in. 9 is the magic number. Let's say you lose to the Browns and you lose to the Cowboys. Still have a 95% chance of making the playoffs. So win 9 games, you're guaranteed in. 10 games, of course, you're guaranteed in. And 8 gives you a little over a 50% chance, just because I think the Giants will lose most of their games. So that's kind of the key for the Commanders. Beat the Giants and win one more game after that. Could be against the Cowboys, 49ers, or the Browns. And the injury to Jimmy G sucks, but it definitely does benefit the Washington Commanders because it makes it much more of a winnable game. I don't know if we're going to be favorites in that game. Probably not, but much higher chance of winning with Brock Purdy as quarterback versus Jimmy G. And I know he had a good first game. We'll see how it goes after that. The first game coming in for relief usually looks a little bit different. So let's go into the most likely scenario. So I kind of went through what we need to do to make it, to get in, and kind of the least we can do, which is 8 wins and getting some help from the Giants. So let's say I'm going to predict us winning against the Giants. I'll probably predict us to lose against the 49ers, but we still would have a very good shot of making the playoffs. And then week 18 really, I think, is hard to predict, just because if the Cowboys aren't resting their starters and they play their starters the whole way through, we're definitely going to be underdogs in that game. It is at home, but I still think they probably, pull that one out. But if not, I think that if they're resting their starters or only play them one half, we definitely should win. So I'm going to say I think the Cleveland Browns game is like a 50-50 shot. So I'm going to say we win one of those games. And let's say it's against the Browns and we lose to the Cowboys, 93% chance, 93% chance. So 9 wins, you are in. And especially if one of those wins is against the New York Giants. So that's really the key. Beating the Giants, win one more game. It doesn't matter which game it is. And we're really looking for the Giants to struggle, which, again, their schedule is tough. They play the Eagles twice. They play us one more time. And they play the Colts. I'm trying to see who else they play. And the Vikings. So the Colts aren't great, but the Vikings are a very good team. Eagles are a great team. And we're a solid team. So it's going to be tough for them to get in. They're going to have to win 2 more games, and if we beat them, that makes it much tougher for them to win, because that means they're going to have to win against the Eagles. They're going to have to win 2 games out of the Eagles twice, Colts, and Vikings, and that's going to be very hard to do unless the Eagles are resting their starters week 18. So that is it for today's video. Kind of gave you guys the playoff outlook. I think we'll make it in, but if we would have beat the Giants last week, it would have been much easier, and we would have really just had to win one more game against the Giants and we're in. But it is what it is. So that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and peace.